Thursday edition of Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher24 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The show is at PBW Podcast on those platforms. Make sure you follow us, interact with us. That is the best way for us to know if you're digging what we're doing, if we're talking about what you want to hear about. So again, interact with us at PBW Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you find your podcast, on the BodySlam.net YouTube channel, and supporting our friends over at SportsWire Radio. I know they appreciate it as well. Once again, my name is Chris Belcher. Thanks for hanging out with us. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Mr. Andy York, the young buck. Andy, how's it going, sir?
Oh, it's good, man. Just busy week, and it feels like it's getting busier and busier, but I'm having fun, man.
Man, it is. It's a busy week when it's 10:15 at night and we're finally hitting the record button. It's becoming a thing, but man, we do what we got to do to get the product out for the people.
Exactly. And, even if nobody listens to it, we enjoy talking wrestling and shooting the breeze and everything else. So it's a lot of fun, man. This is like one of the highlights of my week is recording the podcast. So I love doing it.
It is our 1 to 2 hours a week where we can just, kind of kick our feet up and relax and just talk about wrestling. And that's what we do for all of our listeners on Mondays and Wednesdays. Speaking of that, ladies and gentlemen, our PBWF pay-per-views dropped on Monday on the BodySlam.net YouTube channel and wherever you find your podcast. And Andy, you retweeted today and said this is your favorite episode of PBWF that we've done yet. And it's only pay-per-view number 1. So like that should tell some people, number 1, they need to go check it out because it's incredible. And number 2, they're in for such a wild ride because we are just getting started, man.
My only concern is like we've hit the peak already and we're going to start going downhill from here. But no, it's going to be a lot of fun. We've already started like talking back and forth. I think both of us have at least a plan to the second pay-per-view and what the second pay-per-view is going to look like. It may not be concrete yet, but it's something right now. So it's going to be a lot of fun to build to that. And this past episode was my favorite episode, but this next upcoming one is juicy as well. So I'm looking forward to both.
It's in wrestling, and we talked about it kind of at the pay-per-view when we were doing our releases. Like we get a peek behind the curtain as much as possible from running like a wrestling organization to an extent,
right?
Like running creative in a wrestling organization. So the challenges that come with that, at the same time, you have all these exciting things that happen, but there's challenges. You have to try to find a balance in between the two. But to your point, the best things in wrestling are the go home for the pay-per-view, the pay-per-view, and the fallout from the pay-per-view. Those are the 3 best things. Those I feel like are the easiest to book. It's the other weeks in between that you kind of got to fill in the gaps,
It's the 2 to 3 week. It's the 2 weeks basically between the fallout show and the go home show. That's like that's where you try to get people's attention the most is during those two. Because they're going to tune in for the fallout. They're going to tune in for the go home, but you got to get their attention for the 2 weeks in between. And so that's where the fun stuff is starting to pile in.
It is definitely a lot of fun. We are on the road, like Andy said, to our second pay-per-view. I think I'm tossing around the idea of doing one more match on that pay-per-view. Otherwise, my card is already set. So I'm looking to that, and I know Andy's really close to that. But as far as the PBWF is concerned, we are having a blast doing it, but some news to come along with that. For those of you who are watching on the BodySlam.net YouTube channel, we will not be putting the video version up anymore on the channel. That is nothing against BodySlam.net. There's been no fallout. There's nothing there. We're still going to produce shows each and every Thursday doing the current product. And then we'll drop some Monday bonus shows on the BodySlam.net YouTube channel. But for right now, it's just going to be a lot easier for all of us and a little bit less of a headache for all of us to not produce the video version of the show. There will be still an audio version of the show. So the best way to get that is going to be wherever you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor, Google, wherever you find us, subscribe. That's where you're going to get the PBWF. It's only going to be in audio format. So for those of you who like to look at our smiling faces, we are very sorry. But we're still going to bring you the show. It's going to be the same excitement. You're just really going to have to use your imagination. Right, Andy?
That adds more fun to it, I think.
It does.
Is you got to like when I'm sitting down and writing this out, I have to use my imagination of how it looks, and I think it adds so much more to it. So, while I'm sad we're not going to do the video version anymore, I think the audio version is going to be it's the better route to go anyway. I think, and just to like visualize it yourself, it's pretty cool to do it.
And I will tell you this, I go back and I re-listen to every single episode, sometimes multiple times. Full disclosure, that's not just to get our numbers up. That's just because I want to go back and listen to it. And I really want to digest it, because full disclosure, while we are sitting and recording, I don't remember about half of what you say. And that's nothing against you. That's just
I'm the same way.
That's where my head is at that
Yeah.
point. So when I go back, I'm able to digest your shows as I go back and re-listen. And especially leading into our next recording time, I go back and re-listen to yours so I know what's happening. So it's always interesting how we both digest this, not only present it, but digest it.
Yeah.
We just went off on a tangent on PBWF here in the first 5 minutes of this show. So if you guys haven't listened, please, I implore you, go back. Episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, and the pay-per-view are live as of this recording. Go check it out. It's a lot of fun. All right, Andy, let's get into it this week in the world of wrestling. We'll kick it off with AEW this week. A couple of things that have come out in the news before we get to Fyter Fest that I want to talk about. The first thing is we have gotten some confirmation on Bryan Danielson's injury. It is another concussion. And I say that very sadly because that is what he dealt with in WWE. That is what ultimately put him on the shelf for a couple of years. He got cleared from that, and now we're dealing with it again. Now, I'm not saying that it's the exact same situation or the exact same symptoms or what have you, but Bryan is dealing with concussions again, and that's not good.
No, and this was like the fear, I think, of especially with guys like Bryan Danielson and Edge when they came back, of like, we've got to start watching them, because not watching them, but we got to protect them as much as we can, because we lost Edge for
9 years,
9 years, basically 10 years. We lost Bryan Danielson for 4 or 5. We lost him for a little bit.
He retired after WrestleMania 31, so that would have been 15. Yeah, because AJ came in before 32. That was 16. Yep. So Bryan,
and he wrestled at 34,
and that was 18. So we lost him for 3 years.
3 years, yeah. So we don't want to make these injuries worse or kind of go down that same path. So I get that he is definitely the type of personality, because if you ever watch the 24 documentary on that whole journey, he did not want to walk away for anything. He didn't want to leave for anything. He wasn't going to. And so he's going to be the type of guy, he's always going to push it every single time. And I fully respect that, and I get that. So I hope he takes care of himself. Kudos to Tony Khan for being like, yeah, I know you're feeling good, but let's wait a little bit and see how you're feeling in a couple weeks. And so hopefully everything's fine. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, and we get to see him back in the ring.
Man, I don't know if it's standard concussion protocol or what for real wrestling companies. I don't think it's this way for, sports teams or whatever, but I read this today that in order for him to come back, him being Bryan, he has to go 8 days straight without a headache. That's wild. I can't do that.
I was about to say, I can't do that on a regular basis.
Like, do I need to go get tested or something? Like, I can't do that.
Mine's more of a caffeine problem, though. It's not a concussion problem.
That's 100% the truth. Me too, man. Me too. But seriously, man, that is wild that he has to go 8 straight days. So that tells you that if that is the case, and he does have to go 8 straight days, he hasn't been able to do that in quite a while. So that could be one of the things, like you said earlier, with him feeling okay, but Tony saying, that could be why. That could be why he's
Yeah.
being held back. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, the last thing we want is for the same path that we went on with him earlier. So, take all the time. I would rather miss him for a couple weeks to a couple months and still get to watch him wrestle than him not being able to wrestle anymore. Kind of like we had the conversation with Kenny a couple of weeks ago about Kenny Omega. Kind of the same concept of don't come back until you're like 1,000% sure you're fine, because we want to keep you around for as long as we can.
And to that point, if you get Bryan back early, Bryan's not going to be around for much longer. Let's just be honest. Like he's not. Especially when his two kids get to of school age and stuff like that. He's certainly going to want to be home more. So he's not going to be around much longer. So you don't want him to come back, like you said, less than 100% and then risk further injury or us losing him altogether. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of Edge, let's talk about his brother, Christian. But this conversation does have to do with Edge, and I'm going to get there in just a second. So last week, Andy and I both had in our notes to talk about Christian's promo from Dynamite, and we got carried away on the show, and we didn't get to it. So we want to talk about Christian's promo over the last 3 weeks and tonight as well. Man, the dude is dangerously getting close to MJF level as far as promos go. You know what I mean? Like he's pushing it.
He's definitely pushing it, and he's kind of picking up that void that MJF has left since he's kind of walked away. I don't know what's going on with Christian. I don't know who made him mad, but the promos he's been cutting, it's been you've said it perfectly, like the MJF level of I'm afraid of what he's going to say, but there's no way I'm looking away from this. Like I have to sit here and watch what he's about to do.
For him to call out Jungle Boy's dad when he, for passing away, and how big of a name that is, like that's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And obviously, like, I'm sure he got consent from
absolutely he did
who he's talking about. You always have to, because you don't want to do anything crazy and then really start to make people mad in real life. But the fact that like he was able to do that and get away with it, I don't think if it was anybody else other than him and MJF that asked, I don't think it would have happened. But the fact that it's Christian, like who's going to say no to Christian cutting that kind of promo? So it's edgy, and it's exactly what we wanted from this Christian heel turn was this type of person. It kind of makes me not sad, but it kind of makes me wonder, like, man, what if we got an unhinged, un-PG version of Edge when he turned heel? How fantastic that would have been. How crazy that would have been. That's what I would have loved to have seen that.
I love when I throw you up a softball and you hit it. It's pretty great. And that is not a softball joke because we play on the same softball team. That is the fact that you perfectly segue into my next point, which was heel Edge. A lot of people online have been talking about Christian and how good he's been doing and how impressed they are with him, yada, yada, yada. And a lot of people are saying that he's better on the mic than Edge. Now, let's put this into context of what Tony Khan and AEW allows their superstars to go out and say versus the PG umbrella that the WWE is under. Now, having said that, I'm not judging this by Edge's Judgment Day promos. I'm judging this by Edge as a promo his entire career. Let's not forget that he stole a guy's girlfriend and then beat the crap out of him on live TV, lived to tell about it. And that was real life.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that. But do you think Christian is a better promo than Edge?
All time? No, I don't. As a heel in 2022, I do. I think that's the difference is right now in this moment Judgment Day Edge, heel Edge, because that's kind of what you have to look at from his recent heel turn. Is it led to Judgment Day? It led to all of this stuff that they were doing with them. Christian has done more with his heel turn than I feel like Edge did with his heel turn in WWE. Now, part of that is because Christian isn't held down by the PG standard, which, you know, I agree with that argument, but it's also like you've still got, they're talking about Miz's balls on TV, and we can't do anything edgier than what we did with right. Edge on TV. So there's a difference there, and I don't know. I feel like Christian has a lot more to prove right now. Yes. And so I feel like that's playing a massive, massive part in all of this. Edge is kind of we're going to love Edge kind of no matter what he does because he's Edge. Christian's not going to get that same treatment. And so I think he's trying to prove that right now. So I think all time, no, Christian is not a better promo. But right now in this moment, I don't know if there's anybody right now that's almost on the same level as Christian cutting these promos.
It's definitely a different side of Christian that we never saw in WWE or in TNA or any of that. So I think you're exactly right. I think he's trying to prove himself. Because like we just said about Bryan and like we've said about Edge, Christian's in his last days as well. You know, he's got less of a career in front of him than, you know, he does behind him. So he's not going to be around for much longer either. So for him to really put his stamp on this business and solidify himself as a potential Hall of Famer, he's got to pull out the stops if this is like the big run he's going to have in AEW.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I completely agree. I also, and we're going to get to the vignette later, it'll be interesting to see what side of Edge we get when he comes back.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous about it, but
of course
we'll see.
Of course.
We'll see.
We'll get there. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I saw a crazy amount of people online that were like burying Edge in this whole thing. It's like, well, wait a minute. He probably had something to do with the creation of the Judgment Day, but there's only so much that he can say. Like if you listen to the Edge and Christian podcast when it was a thing, the guy can be just as unfiltered as Christian if he was allowed to be.
And that's why I said, like, I wish we would have got an unfiltered, un-PG version of Edge with this heel turn, because I feel like it would be on what Christian's level right now, maybe even a little bit more. And that's like, that would have been great. That's what we kind of wanted to see from his heel turn recently. And, you know, obviously it has not panned out for anybody involved in that situation the way we thought it would. And so, you know, I think there is definitely an argument to be made that, yes, heel Christian in 2022 was better and is better than heel Edge in 2022. But looking outside of that vacuum, looking all time, Edge is one of the best promo guys of all time. Like, Edge is up there as one of the best promo guys of all time. So it's going to be really hard to beat him on anything.
Even in a PG, pushing PG-13 era, 2006, 2007 Edge, I mean, again, dude stole a guy's girlfriend, talked about it on live TV, and beat the snot out of him. I mean, if you go and listen to some of those promos, like, those were real. Absolutely real.
And there's not been too many guys that have had a live sex celebration in the ring as well. So that definitely plays a huge part in a lot of this as well.
That's true. That is very true. So, yes, I think you're right. 2022, Christian has something to prove, chip on his shoulder. But Edge still, sorry, Christian, he still got one up on you. Let's talk about Fyter Fest from tonight. Lots of big things happening. We would be remiss if we did not start with the brand new AEW Tag-Team Champions, Isaiah Swerve Strickland. I don't think it's Isaiah anymore. Sorry. And Keith Lee defeating Hobbs and Starks and the Young Bucks. What?
I know, man. I was not expecting it, but I would be, and you know how big of a Young Bucks fan I am.
Yes.
I would be lying if I said I didn't pop really hard when they won. I am not mad at this decision at all because of the fact that, one, I don't think if we are going to Young Bucks versus FTR, We don't need the AEW tag titles for that. And 2, we have been complaining, and people have been complaining that they need to do something with Keith Lee. Well, they're doing something with Keith Lee now, and it's very interesting. It's very exciting when they drop those titles at some point and Lee turns on Swerve or Swerve turns on Lee, then we're building off to another story right there. I think, I love the fact that Starks and Hobbs were in this match because I feel like they could be the ones to take the titles off of Lee and Swerve, maybe even as soon as All Out, because these tag title reigns aren't lasting as long as they once were. I say that, though, and I think the Young Bucks have had the shortest reign, and they were after the Jurassic Express have had a super long reign. So it kind of
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
It kind of evens that out a little bit. I don't think the Bucks needed the tag titles. And I think this is a good way to, obviously, Jungle Boy being hurt, you wanted to get the titles off of them quickly. They were already telling the story with the Young Bucks. Just put them on the Bucks, and then the Bucks didn't get pinned. So there's your argument right there. And there you can kind of move forward if you wanted to do Bucks versus Swerve and Lee at some point.
But you had the triple threat match at not Double or Nothing where they lost. I think it was on a Dynamite where we said that the first time that we said guarantee that Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus were going to lose the titles, and they did not. I don't remember if that was Revolution or if that was on a Dynamite. But
because that was Swerve and Lee.
It was Swerve and Lee, and it was Starks and
Hobbs and Starks. That was at Double or Nothing.
And then when did they lose them to the Bucks then, though?
They lost them because remember they were supposed to be the triple threat between the Hardys,
That's
the Young
right,
Bucks,
and they lost the ladder match. That's right.
So Jeff getting in trouble and all that stuff, I think threw a huge wrench into all of this. So they're like, let's throw them on the Bucks and we'll figure it out from there, which is a safe bet anyway. So
right, okay. So Double or Nothing. That was not that long ago. That was not even 2 months ago.
Right,
when that happened. No, sorry, it is 2 months. No, not even 2 months ago.
No, it happened in May.
Into May.
Yeah, it was Labor Day. It was a Memorial Day weekend. Yep.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. So, okay. I guess Jeff really did throw a wrench in all of this. I'm sitting here thinking, like, why don't you just put the titles on them there instead of waiting and then throwing the Bucks in? Because I'm going to be honest, I'm not a Young Bucks fan. Everybody listens to this podcast knows I'm not a Young Bucks fan. I'm just not. But this was. I hate that they were the transitional champions. I hate that. They're the team that can get away with it. I understand that. But it just
they're kind of like the Randy Orton of the tag division in AEW of like, we're in trouble. Let's throw the title on the Bucks and then we'll figure it out from there. And I think Jeff threw a massive wrench in all of this because I think the plan was very clearly put the titles on the Hardy Boys in that ladder match, and then let them hold the belts for 4, 5, 6 months until we get to Revolution or we get to
Full Gear
or something like that. Yeah. But I think with Jeff getting in trouble, it definitely threw a wrench in all of this. So they were like, we got to get the titles off of them because Jungle Boy's hurt. We got to get them off TV. We got to start telling the story with Christian. Let's just throw them on the Bucks and figure it out with there. And I feel like the Bucks are the only team that you could do that to in AEW where it would not hurt them. I don't feel like the Young Bucks are any less than what they are now. And I think if you did it to like FTR is on such a tear right now that I think it would slow them down a little bit.
Yeah.
But with the Bucks, it's like the Bucks are the Bucks. They're going to be there no matter what at the end of the day. So I feel like it was right to put the titles on the Bucks and then right to kind of, if they're not going to go forward with the Young Bucks right now, put them on someone like Swerve and Lee.
I just can't believe I'm in a situation in my head where like this just doesn't sit well with me. Like I can't believe that. But here we are. I'm complaining about the Young Bucks losing the tag belts.
And I'm not even mad at it.
And you're the one not mad at it. Exactly. I was texting Jason earlier today and he said, I'm so excited about this ladder match or this tag title match. And I was like, I am not. And now I'm sitting here like, wait a minute. What? I don't know, man. Like, it really threw me for a loop. Like, to me, AEW is Kenny Omega holding the world title and the Young Bucks holding the tag titles. And I know they're the EVPs, and I know that you shouldn't drive that in the ground. But to me, That's when AEW runs its best, is when those guys are holding the titles. That doesn't take anything away from FTR.
Right.
Because, again, I'm not a huge Young Bucks fan, but I also recognize that I feel like that's when business is the best.
I agree that was probably when they were their most consistent was during that time period.
Mm-hmm.
But to see someone like Swerve and Lee get their tag title, like be tag team champions, you have Wardlow being TNT champion. Obviously, I think if Punk didn't get hurt, Punk being champion would be super solid right now as well.
Sure.
I feel like right now is somewhat of the best AEW has been. Like, and I have been a big fan of AEW from the beginning. You know that. And I am enjoying AEW product week to week now about the same as I was when, like, I believe it was all out when Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole just popped up like that.
Yep.
And like that whole time period from then to this point has been more up than down for me. So I'm really enjoying what they're doing right now. And this is one of the problems, quote unquote problems, if you have one of the best, if not the best, tag division in wrestling right now.
Right.
And it's kind of a good problem to have.
True. Yeah, that's true. And I get that. I do. I don't know why this doesn't sit well with me, but it doesn't. Mark it on your calendars, folks. July the 13th. Current time is 10:41 p.m. Central Time. I'm complaining about the Young Bucks losing.
I'm gonna look outside the window to see if pigs are flying or something, because this is
you probably should.
This is I'm a little scared.
The Lord may be making his return tonight as I talk about the Young Bucks losing the belts.
Oh man,
jeez. Speaking of belts and Wardlow, you mentioned him earlier. Successful title defense tonight against Orange Cassidy. Obviously, I think we both saw that coming. That was going to be a first big statement win for Wardlow. But are you okay with that with Orange Cassidy? I know he wasn't, programmed into something really big right now, but are you okay with him being a guy that just comes in and makes a guy look good? And I don't know. Like, I feel like at one point Orange Cassidy wouldn't have been in this position,
Yeah, I'm fine with it though, because I feel like Wardlow is on such a tear right now that I don't know who else you could put in there with him. Because, I mean, if you put W. Allen in there with him, it's the same argument as with Orange Cassidy. Obviously, you don't want to put like a Hook in there or something like that, because Hook is kind of on his own run right now. So I don't really know. I'm fine with it, though. I knew it was going to be a good match. Obviously, no one thinks Orange Cassidy is going to beat Wardlow for the title. I can't really think of too many people off the top of my head other than Miro, who could potentially beat Wardlow for the title, which if Miro beat Wardlow for the title, I'm totally fine with Miro. I'm fine with Miro holding every single belt, including the women's belt at this point, because I love the dude.
Okay.
But I really think I think it was the perfect first opponent to have, to be like a smaller guy that's going to have the fight in him to go up against Wardlow. Two baby faces kind of going at it just to see who's better, and that kind of story. I'm totally fine with it.
I can see that. I was curious because, like, I feel like Orange Cassidy is one of those guys where he's obviously losing is not going to hurt his popularity at all. I don't want people to get sour on him not being able to win anything serious. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, he's always going to have the Chris Jericho win, and he's always going to have being in that triple threat for the AEW title. And I feel like he's the kind of guy that, I mean, you put him in the ring with someone like Will Ospreay, and we're all like, "Oh yeah, Orange Cassidy is actually a really good wrestler." So like, I feel like he's going to always be that guy that's like, "Oh yeah, let's just throw Cassidy in there, and he could pick up steam at any point."
Right. That's a good point. That's true. Let's talk a little bit about Fyter Fest Part 2 coming up next week, headlined by a barbed wire death match between Chris Jericho and Eddie Kingston. It's the Jericho Appreciation Society suspended above the ring.
Yes.
In a shark cage.
Yes.
How many gimmicks can you throw on one match? Let's just start there.
One, I love the fact that they're in a shark cage. I feel like shark cages don't get used enough in wrestling.
It's true.
And I think the last one I remember was it Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns with Jericho in a shark cage?
Yes.
I think that's the last one that I remember. And so the size of the shark cage to have someone like Hager in it is going to be very, very interesting to see that.
And then you had the one with Enzo
when it was Cass and Big Show,
where Enzo got out of it, but I think that was before.
That was before
Jericho and Owens. Sorry, continue. Yeah. Yes, the size of something for. I mean, is it going to be a shark cage big enough for all of them suspended above the ring, all of them in
or
one?
like individual? Or that's a lot of shark cages to hang,
right? And then are they going to explode or try to explode the ring again? Like what? I know.
Well, it's not
exploding. I know, but
yeah, I don't think they're. I think they're going to stay as far away from that as they can from now on. I think they're just going to stick to death matches, Texas death matches. I'm fine with it. The story has been kind of building to this point of like you can't just have a singles match between Eddie Kingston and Jericho at this point. You've got to have some massive, like, yeah, they won blood and guts, but that was a team effort. Eddie Kingston wants to murder Chris Jericho, and so the only way he can do that is in this barbed wire death match or whatever. So I'm looking forward to it. I love Jericho in these matches is so intriguing to me because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy to do something, and then he lets Nick Gage just hit him in the head with light tubes and cut his forehead open with pizza cutter. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do.
Interesting. I am too.
And I need Eddie Kingston with the gasoline canister again.
Okay.
I need that visual again because that might be my favorite visual from Double or Nothing was him hobbling down the ramp covered in blood, just like a zombie with that in his hand.
I'll call Tony Khan and see if I can make it happen. But no, I'm very much. I am looking forward to it too because it's one of those things where it's like you can't take your eyes off of it. It's one of those things you have to watch. You just have to see it.
Oh yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Anything else from AEW, man, that you want to add? That was in the news this week or from Dynamite tonight?
Not that I can really think of. Moxley had a match with
yes.
Forget his name.
I don't remember either.
Oh, he's one of the Japanese wrestlers that has been killing it on AEW for the last couple of weeks. So but the match itself was really, really good.
Is that his name?
Yeah, Takeshita. Obviously Moxley bled again. Look at you. Moxley bled again, but it was, if you haven't seen it, it was a really good match. Takeshita has been doing amazing stuff on Dark and on Rampage, and so I'm glad to see he kind of got this opportunity.
Yeah, that is very cool. I will have to go back and watch that match. I'm so shocked that Jon Moxley bled again. Surprise, surprise. If you're shocked, if you want more of Jon Moxley bleeding, make sure you check out PBWF Mayhem because
it's only gonna get worse bleeds. Too.
Oh Lord,
it's only gonna get worse too.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right, if you're just now checking us out, welcome to the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I'm your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting Chris Belcher. Follow me at Chris Belcher 24. Joining me as always is Mr. Andy York, the young buck, Andy Yuck, as we like to call him. So make sure you follow him at Andy_PBWP. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you find your podcast on the Body Slam .net YouTube channel and SportsWire Radio. Shout out to Tom and those guys over there. We appreciate all of their love and support as well. Andy, let's get into it, man. We just talked about AEW. Let's get some WWE talk going before we wrap up the show. Man, big news. And I think it came out today. Mm-hmm. Yeah, today. Sasha Banks announced for her first public appearance since her walkout, she is going to be a guest at C2E2. For those of you who don't know, it's a big Chicago entertainment Comic-Con type thing. Man, it's a little wild, don't you think?
It's going to be interesting. I wonder what capacity she's going to be doing because I think she's mainly going for the Mandalorian, like her role with the Mandalorian and things like that. I wonder if she's going to do like a Q&A type session or if it's just meet and greets or something like that, because I surely she's not going to be doing Q&As, because if she is,
no,
we need it to be recorded because somebody's going to ask a WWE question and I want to see what her answer is, because I'm sure it'll spark all kinds of discussion and everything else. But it's very interesting that she's doing this appearance.
It really is, because you got to think it's got to be WWE orchestrated, because she's technically still under contract.
Right.
As far
Unless
as
they're
we're
doing it
all
with the
aware.
Mandalorian. Unless they're doing it with the Disney Mandalorian side, but even then they would
Right.
have to work with WWE
Exactly.
for that unless she's
She's
no longer in the
released.
company and we
Yep.
don't know it yet.
Unless
Which
she's
if
released.
that's the case, then that's
Because,
really interesting.
well, I looked at the poster today of the announcement, and it does not say FKA Sasha Banks, which would be formerly known as, for those of you
Yeah.
who keep up with people who make appearances after they're released. They all say FKA. That did not say FKA. It says
Right.
Mercedes Vernado. Underneath it says Sasha
Sasha
Banks
Banks.
/ whatever her Mandalorian character is. I have no idea. But
Yeah.
it says it there. So that's how it's presented. So to me, she's still with WWE. So to me, that means that they had to work this out with WWE. All in all, it's just very interesting.
It is.
Very interesting. Also very interesting. We learned today that WrestleMania 38 in Dallas / Arlington was the highest attended event in WWE history. Of course it was, because it was 2 nights, so you have to take that into consideration. But over 153,000 people attended the event across 53 countries and all 50 states. That's wild to think about, Andy, because you and I were there in the midst of all of that. To think about how many states and countries like that were represented, dude, that's wild.
Yeah, it I don't think it really dawned on me, like the diversity of people that were there, then, like, until this came out. Like, I don't think we really put that together and focused on it. I think probably 70,000 people were there each night.
Yep.
I don't think it was like the 90,000 that they tried to push. I think there was probably 90,000 people in the building, wrestlers and staff included. But I think there was probably 70-something thousand people there, and I didn't realize how diverse it actually was until reading this. So that was really cool to experience that and to be a part of that.
And on top of that, we learned that it was the highest grossing WrestleMania for any city that they have gone into as far as revenue streams for the city. Over $200 million in profit for the Dallas Arlington area. So to go along with what you just said, that is a wild number, man.
It is. And obviously part of that is WrestleCon and a lot of the independent shows and stuff that are being run around there. But again, the only reason why they are there is because of WrestleMania being there. So it's a big number. And yet I feel like SummerSlam is going to have a massive number as well, because Nashville is such a destination place. And there's obviously with StarCast and a lot of this other stuff, and the fact that Ric Flair's last match is happening here, and there's just so many different things going on with SummerSlam weekend. I feel like the numbers are going to be huge for that as well.
We have to go look up the NFL draft number from when it was here so that we can compare it, because that's what WWE is going to be shooting for. Because I know they had a huge impact on the city when they were here, so we need to go look up that number so that we're aware of that. That was just a couple of general WWE things that we wanted to hit. Let's go to SmackDown, kicking things off with the Tribal Chief. Andy, it's always great when Roman Reigns is on TV. Again, it is 10:54 Central Time, July the 13th, and it's always great when Roman Reigns is on TV. But man, inserting Theory in this, and just the way the whole segment was structured, I thought it was great, man. I really did.
Yeah, I'm still sour on a lot of the situations that are going on with Theory and with Roman and Brock again, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to Monday Night Raw.
Yes.
But, at the promo Paul Heyman cut was great, because Paul Heyman is the greatest promo of all time. And I don't think it's a debate at this point. And Theory just kind of walking out and circling the ring and leaving was was good. Like that was funny. I enjoyed that part. Still not believable, but it was funny. And so I think I enjoyed it. And Roman Reigns, for all the flack that he gets, he sells people's music hitting during his promos and during his segments better than anybody. When Cena showed back up at Money in the Bank, his facial expression sold that just as much as the crowd popping.
Yep.
When Brock came back at SummerSlam, his facial expression sold that. Whenever The Rock shows up during one of these promos, it's going to be amazing to see what his face is. I don't think it's happening at SummerSlam.
I'm holding out hope, man. I'm holding
out hope too, but I'm afraid we're going to hear Theory's music by the end of the night and not Rock's music, and that just makes me want to go jump off the bridge. But
there's a bridge really, really close.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The walking bridge. I'm just gonna give Katie my wallet and then just jump off. But no, I like his facial expression the whole time when Theory was out there was like, "Are you seriously out here interrupting me right now?" Like that was great.
For those of you who have been listening to PBWF, episode 1, when Matt Cardona interrupts Roman Reigns, that's the exact expression I was going for. So that gives you a little context as to what's going on. Peek behind the curtain. If you don't know what's going on in PBWF, Roman Reigns and Matt Cardona, what? Go check it out. It's a lot of fun. But seriously, like that's the expression that I was going for. And like Roman Reigns, like you just said, he's so good at that, man.
Yeah.
For all the flack that he gets, there's so many intangibles that he does that just makes things it just brings things to another level, like nobody else can, everybody can sell somebody's music popping, but the way Roman Reigns does is wild. It's
if you're good. And if you're like Vince at WrestleMania 38, you freak out to the wrong music and give away the big moment before it even happens.
Bro, I can't.
I remember we were sitting there watching. We were watching, like we were there in person and we saw it. And I was like, when Theory's music hit, he freaked out. We both looked at each other and went, "Stone Cold's coming out." Like that's all we needed was that.
Because we were all hoping that it was going to happen. And
right.
There was somewhere we had read at one point that it was rumored that he was going to come out on the second night as well.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm just going to watch it. And from what was going on with Theory and McAfee and Vince, like we were watching the screen at that point because their backs were to us. So we were watching the screen so we could clearly see Vince's face when that music hit. It was hilarious. I was like, dang it, that just gave it away. But
way to go, Vince.
I'm excited though. So that was fantastic. Another thing that was fantastic from SmackDown this week, I missed Pat McAfee being there. I really did. But having Corey Graves there and in his place is always a treat.
Yeah.
Especially when Corey Graves' best friend, Baron Corbin, like real life best friend, Baron Corbin, comes out and they're making fun of McAfee when Nakamura's music hit.
Yeah.
Andy, when they got up on the table and started playing air guitar, I almost fell out of my chair. It was amazing.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is the first time I've been excited for a Corbin match ever. Like ever. And I'm looking forward to see what they're going to do at SummerSlam. Part of me kind of hopes Corey gets involved some way, somehow.
Cool. I mean, so cool.
Because I want to see McAfee just beat the crap out of Corey for some reason. Like I think that would be great, but I also want to I'm waiting for the day that Corey Graves just gets up and shoot punches Byron Saxton in the face. That's like my dream moment is Corey Graves doing that. I'm already a big Corey Graves fan. I will be the biggest Corey Graves fan if he ever just shoot punches Byron Saxton in the face, because I've got some issues with Byron Saxton right now.
Listen, if he starts saying more cross words about Carmella on Monday Night Raw, Corey might actually do it. You got a shot.
Not even that, but yes, if we're at SummerSlam and I see Corey just get up and deck Byron, I'm going to pop so loud for that. But yes, I do hope he gets involved somehow. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. This is the most entertaining Corbin has been ever, maybe ever. I'm
enjoying it.
I'm not
going to say ever because I really enjoyed Bum A Corbin last year.
That was great
I
too.
thought it
Yeah.
was so good.
But that was only so great because of McAfee's call every single time he showed up. Like that, like McAfee added more than that than Corbin did at times.
That's true. That's very true. So I'm really excited for this. I'm like you. I was excited for the Drew and Corbin match from WrestleMania, but I'm way more excited. I have a feeling that Corbin might win this match just because McAfee got his win at WrestleMania, so he might not get the win here. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm starting to lean the other way though because I feel like they're just going to start going down this rabbit hole with Corbin to where we may get Bum A Corbin back or like a version of it.
Okay.
Which I feel like would be very, very interesting to see that. Plus, McAfee beat Theory, so why wouldn't McAfee beat Corbin at this point as well?
That's true. You're right. That's true. Man, that's wild to think that that McAfee did beat Theory on this rise of Austin Theory. It's crazy.
It makes me a little sad that McIntyre kicked out of the End of Days because could you imagine if Pat McAfee was the first person ever to kick out of the End of Days?
You were talking about Corey getting involved earlier. That would be awesome if he did. What would be even more awesome if it led to a Corey Graves versus Pat McAfee match. What I would be upset about is if that match happens at WrestleMania next year, because I've already told myself I'm not even going to try to go. It's not in the cards. If that happens at Mania, I'm going to be so upset that I'm not there.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about this. The only reason I would go to Mania, and my wife is downstairs, so I'm going to say this very quietly before she comes up here and punches me in the back of the head. The only reason I would try to go to Mania is if it is like Rock Roman, if it's McAfee and Graves, and if it's like Seth Rollins versus Kenny Omega or something like that, then I will definitely be there. But it's looking like it's going to build to something like that.
And one of the things that we talked about while we were in Dallas was that if Triple H was to get inducted in the Hall of Fame, like that would be another one that would be like, okay. But I'm just begging. I want to see Graves and McAfee one-on-one. I just think that would be.
It's going to happen at some point.
They would surprise so many people. Yeah. Because there's so many people in this era of watching wrestling fandom that have never seen Corey Graves wrestle. The majority of the people that watch right now do not even know he was a wrestler.
Yeah.
So to bring that back out will be awesome.
He's a former NXT Tag Team Champion. So like he was good too. I mean, obviously he was in there with Pac, and that's Pac's a good partner to have, but he held his own too. So I think it'd be very interesting if they did build to that at some point.
I think it would be really cool. Again, WWE, if you're listening, let's book that. Let's put it on the calendar, but let's not do it at WrestleMania. Let's push it to like SummerSlam next year or WrestleMania 40, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, on to Monday Night Raw. And we the same way we kicked off SmackDown with a great segment, man. Cowboy Brock in Texas kicking off Monday Night Raw. Listen, I never thought I would be sitting here saying how excited I am for Roman Reigns to be on television. I cannot figure out how in the world Brock Lesnar is such a good babyface. After being such a nasty heel, he is that good of a babyface, man.
I don't get it either. Like the promo he cut made no sense half the time. None. But it was great. Like I loved it. I enjoyed it. I would be enjoying Cowboy Brock more if we just got him versus someone other than Roman at this point. Like
True.
Cowboy Brock versus anyone else on the roster, I feel like would be so much fun. Why are we not running back like Brock versus Sami Zayn? Because their interactions that they had building up to WrestleMania was amazing.
Yep.
Like things like that would be absolutely amazing. I have zero excitement for the main event of SummerSlam. Like I feel like it's going to be more disappointing than exciting at this point because we've already seen it.
You were already not excited about it. And
no, I was already.
Now you add the element of theory in it, and you really don't like it.
No, My biggest fear is we walk out of SummerSlam with Theory as
As the
one
champion.
of the champions, if not both of the champions. Like that is like that's not
Yeah.
that would make me not want to watch Raw the next night. Like that would it would not be a good feeling to leave with that happening,
My
that taking
my
place.
my stomach is legit turning thinking about it.
Yeah, like
No joke.
the boos that it would get, the crowd reaction it would get, and I understand that's the reaction you want to get. Yes, but there's a difference in like heel heat and this is stupid
Go away
heat,
heat. Yep.
and that's the kind of heat that he would get. So
Yep.
that's my biggest fear is that happening. Best case scenario, Roman wins, decent match, rock music hits. That's like, oh yeah, this is the greatest SummerSlam ever if this happens. And it's the two drastic ends make me very, very nervous about what could happen.
And we're gonna be in the suffering heat watching the whole thing. So,
Yeah. So I may be so hot I'm already angry. And then
that's 100% true. Drenched in sweat. That's 100%
my
the truth.
gosh.
I'm still holding. You were talking about matchups for Cowboy Brock earlier. I'm still holding on to Brock Lesnar versus Kevin Owens. Would be absolutely one of the greatest things ever. But with Kevin Owens, especially coming off this Ezekiel stuff, saying Brock, you're not a real cowboy, blah blah blah. I mean,
Yes.
it writes itself.
It does.
But Brock and Owens would be fantastic. I'm somewhat excited for the main event. But again, this possible ending has got me. But I will say this to add on to Brock's segment, from Raw, the feat of strength to F5 Otis.
Oh, that was
through the
amazing.
Table. That was insane. Him throwing those guys around. Wow.
I thought he was going to kill Chad Gable for a second. Like he
Oh,
he looked legit mad after the chop block behind him. He kind of looked legit mad at first. I thought, oh Lord, he's just going to murder Chad Gable in front of everybody right now. But yeah, the F5 was crazy.
That was insane. Let's talk about another crazy thing from Raw and probably the best match of the night. Raw recently, not to go off on a tangent, but here recently, and I would say 6 months to a year, let's just say since fans have been back, just for giggles, they always have one just absolutely banger of a match. When you watch Raw for 3 hours, and a lot of us get tired of some of the same stuff over and over, and a lot of us get tired of the same WWE trying to be entertaining or trying to do something stupid, they always come up with something to remind you why they are who they are and why they've been around for as long as they've been around. And this week, it was Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio. What a match, man. I loved it.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. I don't care about Judgment Day at all, but the match itself was better than I was expecting it to be. Which is crazy because it involved Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio. I really, really enjoyed it though. I think they really handled the whole thing very well. They gave him some time too, it seemed like, so that was great. The coup de grace that he hit on Bray was
crazy.
I don't know how he hadn't killed somebody with that move yet. Like that move is just absolutely stiff.
Yep.
But yeah, the match was great. The promos beforehand were a little. I could have done without the promos. I could have done with just get straight to the match. Let's just have this match.
Yep.
You could have done half the things you said in the promo during the match to call out Dominic, but I don't think we're getting Finn versus Edge at SummerSlam now. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I don't think we're getting that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't know how they're gonna do it. I don't know what's gonna happen. Unless it happens, I'm gonna say unless we get Edge or some sort of tease directly with Finn Balor. If we don't get it next week, I don't think we're getting it. I think there's still a shot because you don't have to build to that match. All you got to do is say Edge back, boom, SummerSlam.
Right.
That makes sense. If we don't get it next week, I don't think we're going to get it. But like you said earlier when we were talking about Edge and Christian and AEW, Judgment Day's been snake bit from the beginning. I mean, you had Edge and you had Priest. Okay, it was kind of weird. We didn't know what was going to happen. Then we had Rhea Ripley and Then we get Finn Balor. They turn on Edge. Rhea Ripley gets hurt. They're wrestling on main event. Like, who knows what is going on? What's more frustrating to me though than all that? Like, I get sometimes crap like that happens, but Finn goes from being in a tag team with AJ and with Liv Morgan, and then he joins the Judgment Day. Why have we not seen AJ Finn? Like, they were supposed to be best friends and all this, and it's like we totally just forgot that happened.
Because they don't care. They don't care about Judgment Day. They just wanted to get to this heel turn. They just wanted to get this turn for Edge to get him babyface again because Cody got hurt. I really feel like that is really the story we've been telling. That they try to get to that point. They try to rush it to that point. Yeah. AJ hasn't really done anything with Finn. The last thing he's done was that 6 tag, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then the next night's when Finn joined Judgment Day. Yeah.
So like,
and Edge got kicked out.
And AJ hasn't even mentioned it at all. I honestly am afraid that we're gonna get AJ and Logan Paul versus Miz and Ciampa at SummerSlam.
Oh gosh.
And I feel like that's probably gonna be the case. Honestly, though, if that doesn't happen, I don't think we get AJ on the card. Like, I don't think AJ shows up at SummerSlam, which is stupid.
Which is
absolutely stupid.
2 pay-per-views in a row because he wasn't on Money in the Bank.
And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't know if we're going to get Edge at SummerSlam at this point.
I don't either. I think he shows up Monday after.
So, like, and the report right now is Cena's probably not going to be at SummerSlam because he's filming Peacemaker Season 2. Otherwise, I feel like we would have already started building to something.
Yep.
So, like, SummerSlam is...
no Cody, no Cena.
No Cody, no Edge, Cena, no Edge. AJ. No Taker. No.
Don't say no Rock. Let's not speak that yet. It's still my
not even like this is shocking. Not even Goldberg. Like all we're doing is building to Brock Roman 18, and that's it. So like, I don't understand what if they're trying to sell out a stadium. And I haven't looked at tickets, but I'm pretty sure there's still quite a few tickets left. Yep. Even in the lower section, I feel like there's still quite a few tickets left.
There is.
So like, I don't know what we're building to. I don't know what else we can add that's going to add any intrigue to SummerSlam at this point.
Well, as far if we're looking at the card, and then we've still got one more thing to talk about from Raw. But if we're looking at the card for SummerSlam right now, it stands Roman and Brock, Miz versus Logan Paul 1-on-1 as of right now. Liv Morgan defending against Ronda Rousey, McAfee and Corbin, Street Profits and the Usos rematch, which I'm so glad we're getting. Yeah. But apparently with a special guest referee, I'm anxious to see what that is. Don't know how that's going to play out.
It has to be Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, that would just make my day if it was Jeff.
It's honestly either Jeff Jarrett or it's Rikishi.
Man. Ooh, Kishi. Somebody on Twitter today said the dude from NXT. That's their family.
Yeah, I've seen that too. But I think Jeff Jarrett is the only option. Either Jeff Jarrett or Jerry the King Lawler. It's gonna be one of those two.
Yes, and I would be fine with either of those two because you do something good with that.
I'd rather have Jarrett than Jerry.
Oh, 100% I would too. Anyway, so you got Profits and Usos special guest referee, and then you've got Theory and Lashley for the U.S. title. Those matches have been announced. Yeah. Then we probably are going to get Rollins and Riddle, which hasn't been announced officially yet. Probably going to get that. Probably going to get the Drew and Sheamus #1 contender match. Since we didn't get it on SmackDown, they wouldn't have teased that if we weren't going to get it at some point.
Yeah.
So I'd say we'll get that. And on top of that, man, we'll probably get the Viking Raiders and the New Day. Probably. No, probably.
We'll probably get Bianca, Becky, and Carmella
in a triple threat.
Triple threat. Kind of bring that back from last year's SummerSlam.
Or you put Asuka in their Fatal 4-Way.
Yeah.
You could. But I mean, like, that's already.
You got to give Walter a match.
Yes, you got to get. That's true. You got to give him a match. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, you're already pushing 9-10 matches. Is there really more that you're going to add?
Probably not.
That's what I'm saying.
So it looks like we're not getting Cena. It looks like we're not getting Edge, and
AJ.
not getting AJ. Not getting Finn. Not getting Judgment Day. Not getting Charlotte, which I'm totally fine with. I'm fine with that one. I'm totally fine with that one.
I bet that we get not necessarily the tag match that you mentioned with AJ and Logan Paul, but I bet that Logan Paul wins, Ciampa jumps him, and then AJ comes in and makes a save and at least makes an appearance, just to help out Logan Paul and
hopefully,
we get the baby face, whatever.
Yeah, I just, for this to be like probably the second biggest show of the year.
Yes.
It's the weakest it's been in a long time at this point. And yeah, I understand like the last few pay-per-views have been weak builds and then the shows have been great. But like for SummerSlam, man, I feel like it needs it. We got to have something else. There's got to be something else.
We talked on this podcast a whole lot, man, that a lot of the SummerSlams compete with the WrestleManias as far as quality goes.
Yeah.
And this one's not going to get there. If this is the card, I don't know that it's going to get there. Now, and once the bell rings, okay, it might get there, but this card is just not there for me.
And with the way WWE has been trending lately, I feel like there's going to be a lot more sour moments than positive moments.
Yeah, maybe.
At SummerSlam this year. Like, there's a difference between Triple H turning on Bryan Danielson and that main event against Cena after the match was over to set up the authority. Like, that was a big moment. That was not go home heat. That was like, oh, wow, you actually suck for doing that. Like, I hate you for doing that. Versus what could potentially happen with Theory. Like, that's not going to be a good moment. If Ronda Rousey beats Liv Morgan, that's not going to be good for anybody at all, which I feel like that's a very big possibility to happen is Ronda beat Liv.
And then Charlotte show up.
Oh, don't even say that. That literally just, my blood just started. I may walk out, man, if that. I may just throw something at Charlotte halfway down the ramp.
We are sitting close to the ramp, so yeah.
We are. I would much rather hear Bayley's music than Charlotte's music, which I think there's a good chance we hear Bayley's music at SummerSlam at some point. But yeah, there's no intrigue. There's no build. Like the main event is something we've seen several times, including several times at SummerSlam. I think we've seen a variation of this 3 times at SummerSlam, not including this one.
This will be the 3rd time.
Because we saw it at 2018 when Roman finally beat Brock.
We saw it before that too. Didn't we see it in 2017? Wasn't that the one where they did the Fatal 4-Way?
Yeah.
No, that was Great Balls of Fire.
No,
it was 17. Yeah.
It was 17 because Great Balls of Fire was Brock Joe.
Oh, that was singles, right. So the Fatal 4-Way was at SummerSlam 17. Yeah. Roman
18
Brock 18.
Was 19 was
Rollins Brock.
Yeah.
Yep, and then 20 Brock was gone.
But we've seen this 3 times at SummerSlam. Lord knows how many times we've seen it at WrestleMania. I feel like we've seen it every other year at WrestleMania. It feels like a lot more than that. So I don't know. It feels like we're just going into nothing at this point.
Well, let's transition as we get ready to head out here into something that, speaking of nothing, that could be something, I don't know. You talk about out of left field. Dolph Ziggler shows up and turns face and super kicks Austin Theory. Like, he got a good pop for it. I don't hate it, but man, where did that come from?
I feel like we could get in the ring and super kick Austin Theory and we would get a huge pop. So like, I feel like Dolph is the kind of guy that you put in the ring when you're trying to get the young guy over and make him look strong. And I feel like that's what we're building to. But randomly, right before SummerSlam, like the placement of it is just weird. I feel like whoever came up with this idea, and I'm pretty sure I know who came up with this idea, just woke up and was like, oh, let's just do this thing and see if it works. And I don't know. It was the most random thing I've seen on Raw in a long time.
Well,
and we've seen a lot of random things on Raw.
I think it's one of those things where we can't really see Theory and Lashley in the ring together 15 zillion times before the pay-per-view because we can only do so much with that.
Right.
So we got to save it for the pay-per-view. Plus, we've already seen it on one pay-per-view. We've seen the pose down. We've seen now a tag match, yada, yada, yada. We saw the gauntlet match or whatever it was. So I think we're just trying to pivot to get Theory some wins and to not have to see Lashley directly involved. I don't know though, man. I'm always here for a good Dolph Ziggler something because Dolph is always going to deliver.
Yeah.
So
it's just,
it's
I
weird.
feel like Dolph always gets stuck in the most random things though.
He does. That's true. He does.
So I don't know. If this frees up Robert Roode or Bobby Roode or whatever you want to call him, if it frees him up to be Glorious One and go back to NXT 2.0, I feel like that's the perfect gimmick for NXT 2.0. I feel like that would be great. Even if he comes back to the main roster and is the Glorious One again, like, please do that because I enjoy Bobby Roode as the Glorious One. Like that was a fun time. So separate them for a little bit and just let Ziggler do whatever he's going to do. But it was just, I was so confused when his music hit.
I think everybody. I think the announcers were confused, and then they tried to cover it up, and it was weird.
And then he just sat down at ringside, and then
it was strange.
I don't know. It was weird.
It's a little weird.
It was weird.
Like it would have made a lot of sense if that would have been Cena. Like I know Cena's busy and whatever, but like to continue the Cena theory thing, if we're gonna eventually get there. Like that would have made sense. Could you imagine? I just thought about this to continue the sick feeling in our stomach. And then we'll wrap up. If Theory does win the championship and Cena goes after him to try to break the record and Theory beats him, like we don't get Cena winning the championship. Yeah, I know.
What? Okay. I don't. Oh, man. Why? We have been building for Roman for over 2 years now, basically.
Yes.
I think at whatever was after SummerSlam.
It was Payback, which happened to be the week after SummerSlam in 2020.
Right. So basically SummerSlam, like since SummerSlam 2020,
we're at 2 years.
We have been building Roman as this like godlike figure in WWE for someone to come and dethrone.
Yep.
And if it's anyone other than Seth Rollins, who is like second on my list right now, Drew McIntyre, who is third on my list right now, and Cody Rhodes, who is like the only one that could really do it, if they waste it on Theory, and I'm not even like, I don't even hate Theory. I think Theory, I said it last week, Theory's going to be a star.
Yep.
If they build it right, if they do it right. That doesn't mean do the John Cena route. That doesn't mean do the Roman Reigns route where you make everyone hate him for years and then like, oh yeah, let's do what you actually wanted to do in the first place and then make you happy. Oh man, if they waste Roman's run on Theory, then oh Lord, I don't know. I don't even want to know.
You talk about WWE screwing something up. You hand them something on a silver platter.
Yeah,
that is what fans have been clamoring for so long, and they finally do it, and they still find a way to screw it up. Like
I firmly believe, that if Cody didn't get hurt right now, SummerSlam main event would be Roman versus Cody for the Uwu title. Like I feel like that's the way we were going, and then Cody got hurt, and like, oh, let's just bring Brock back and let's throw the belt on Theory. Like I would have much rather have seen Rollins win the Money in the Bank briefcase. Rollins or Cody beat Roman. Rollins cash in. Like that story tells itself.
Yep.
Now I don't know what we're going to do with Theory, and it doesn't have a happy ending.
Because
one way or another.
Here's the thing, man, and I know we're going long on this, and I apologize, but this is
my Starrcade 97 for the year.
This is Starrcade 97 right now. The problem with Theory, and him having the briefcase and Roman's reign, no pun intended. I just, that just came out. And the problem is the longer that you wait, the worse it's going to get.
Yep.
So like you have to do it now. It has to be done immediately so that we have time to recover with Roman, get him back to where he needs to be. Whether if that's taking one title off of him or both or whatever. And we've said it time and time again, he doesn't need the title to face The Rock. That
right.
We know that.
Right.
But why would you just throw it away? I don't understand that.
I would rather see Roman versus The Rock for the titles than see Theory take the titles off of Roman. And again, no disrespect to Theory at all, but it's way too soon. It's way too soon.
I've told you this before, and I think I've told some other people this before. Rock coming back to claim his family's throne, to me, only makes sense if Roman is the most dominant figure on the program.
Yep.
If he loses the title, he is no longer the most dominant figure on the program and has no leg to stand on to be the most dominant figure on the program. Therefore, no need for The Rock to come back and dethrone Roman. It doesn't make any sense now.
Like, honestly, I feel like, and I don't know if you could do this, I wouldn't be against if they could find a way to replicate the Rumble ending with Cena and Batista.
You could do that.
And have Rollins and Cody's feet hit at the same time. And that way, night one begins with Cody versus Seth, and the winner faces the winner of Rock and Roman at the end of night one and night two's main event. So you could have Seth and Cody in the show opener. You could have Rock Roman at the end of night one, and then the main event of night two, the main event of WrestleMania, could be Roman Cody for the titles.
Yeah.
And maybe Rock gets involved. Personally, I would rather see Cody. Whoever beats Roman needs to beat Roman clean. Like, there needs to be no shenanigans. There needs to be no roll-up victories. It needs to be decisive in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3.
And it needs to be somebody who's ready for it.
Yeah, and
this is I've said this before. WWE, where we always complain about WWE not making stars and blah, blah, blah. I'm all for making new stars. We have said it right here on this podcast just not 10 minutes ago. Theory's going to be a star. That's fine. Going to be is the key word, because this instance of Roman Reigns, whenever he does drop the belts, is not a star-making opportunity.
Correct.
Because if you're trying to force somebody, like you said earlier, down our throats and ending this reign too soon, it's going to get rejected. This does not need to be a star-making moment. This needs to be somebody who is star-ready, who can take over where Roman left off, and most importantly, like you said earlier, believable enough to beat Roman Reigns. Austin Theory, I don't care if it's at the end of a last man standing match in 100-degree heat and both Brock and Roman can't answer the 10 count. Austin Theory is not believable enough to beat Roman Reigns.
No, and honestly, this is Roman Reigns in 2015. 2014, 2015.
Yep.
The Shield's broken up. Obviously, everyone who is watching with their eyes can see Roman's going to be a star.
Yep.
Like, there's no way around it. But in that moment, he was not ready to be a star. He was not ready for that WrestleMania 31 main event against Brock.
Nope.
He was not. Who was ready, though, was Seth Rollins.
Yep.
Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose were the two guys of the Shield that literally through the summer after they split up carried WWE on their back, because all of their matches that they had were fantastic. And then you add someone like Daniel Bryan, who obviously the fans, who was going to be mad at Brock versus Bryan at WrestleMania 31 if that was ever going to happen? Like that. Right. I'm glad they didn't, because Bryan was going through his concussion things, and Lord, who knows what. I trust Bryan in a ladder match than I do with Brock, but
Seth
and Dean were prepared for that moment and we're ready for that moment. Obviously, everyone knew we were going to get to where we're at with Roman now at some point, just not when WWE wanted us to. It was way too soon for Roman.
And I don't know what Theory's background is, so this is not a knock against Theory directly, but the reason that Seth and Dean were ready for that, because guess what? They came up in the independent scene and they wrestled all over the world. Roman Reigns came off the football field and was trained to be a wrestler.
Yep.
Not taking anything away from Roman Reigns in 2022, but like you said, in 2014, 2015, he didn't have the experience under his belt that Seth and Dean did.
And the fact that the independent wrestling scene, while Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose and Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles and Finn Balor and Shinsuke Nakamura and all these guys, the independent scene that they were in was the hottest independent wrestling scene possibly ever. Like it places were booming during that time period, more so than they are now. Like Ring of Honor and New Japan and PWG, like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, was huge and massive.
Yeah,
and now
don't forget your Kenny Omegas and your Sami Zayn.
Exactly. Kevin Owens
and all that.
And now look at the fact that, like, who are the main stars of WWE? Well, you have Roman, who was handpicked for this, basically. Yep. You have Brock, who was handpicked for this, basically. And then you've got Seth Rollins. You've got, just from the WWE aspect of things, you've got Seth Rollins. You've got Cody Rhodes, who, he was a wrestler in WWE, but he really is not Cody Rhodes until he goes to the independent scene and becomes Cody Rhodes. You've got Kevin Owens. You've got, I'm going to throw Sami Zayn in there because Sami Zayn has been impressive the last 2 or 3 years, honestly. Sure. You've got Shinsuke Nakamura. You've got a lot of these guys who AJ Styles, who their background is independent wrestling. Drew McIntyre.
Yep.
Yeah. And so independent wrestling teaches you how to become, you have to become the total package to survive. Otherwise you're not going to make money. You're not going to get booked for these shows. You're not going to be able to do anything. Right. Whereas when you come in and you're handpicked, you just think it's, and I'm not saying that this was his mentality, but you think everything's easy, and it's not. So it's too soon for Theory, and I'm nervous for SummerSlam now, but we're going to have a great time. And I'm sure the post show for that is going to be it's going to be a blast one way or another.
Tune in, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be a wild time.
If you hear how passionate I am now, just imagine if it actually happens that Theory walks out with the titles, because we might need Brad with the swear button for that episode if that happens.
Yeah. All right, man. Let's put a bow on this episode, man. Good conversation. Hope you guys are enjoying it. At PBW Podcast, give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. Maybe you are totally against our opinions and you think Austin Theory is ready to go. Like, we want to hear that. We'll tell you you're wrong, but we want to hear that. Let's wrap up by handing out our high spots and turd sandwiches of the week. The highs and the lows this week in the wrestling business. Best thing and the worst thing, man. It's kind of hard to give out this week, if I'm being honest. Just a couple of things that kind of stood out above the rest. Not too many things that were really bad. What did you think as far as from a turd sandwich perspective? Worst thing you saw this week?
The worst thing I saw this week, not really what I saw, but what I had to listen to, and that was Byron Saxton on commentary just drove me up a wall this week.
Wow.
I hate babyface announcers more than anything, because they literally have zero logic when it comes to certain things. And that's one thing I love about Corey Graves is, like, he points out when Byron Saxton is, like, talking out of both sides of his mouth, whether it's a good guy or a bad guy.
Right.
And like Byron's just like, oh no, I'm not, like, you're very clearly doing that. So like that has always been annoying to me.
Wow. I am going to go, man. Mark it down. Young Bucks losing the titles to me.
Wow.
The worst.
Wow. I'm happy.
I just don't get it. I really don't. It's just mind blowing to me. I'm not saying that Lee and Swerve aren't going to have a good reign, it just makes me care a little less about the tag team division.
Really?
Yep, it does.
Wow.
So mark it down.
I'll buy you that. I'm going to send you that Young Bucks t-shirt now, man.
Oh, good grief.
You've officially been accepted in.
Oh my God.
To the Young Bucks fan club.
Am I elite now? Can I be elite?
No, you're not there yet, but you're close.
Okay, I'm working on it.
You're semi-elite.
Oh my goodness. All right. High spot of the week. What do you think was one of the best things that you saw this week in the wrestling business?
From a match perspective, I'm going to say the tag team triple threat match from Dynamite. It was amazing. But the R-Truth segment from Monday Night Raw was so funny. Him announcing all the jobs that he has, from being a marriage lawyer, a divorce lawyer, a tag team counselor, a tag team therapist, and a referee. So he was volunteering to be the special guest referee. And then Omos comes out, and they're all face to face, and the match itself is fun. Like, R-Truth isn't bad in the ring. He's fun. I used to hate R-Truth. I really did. I love him to death now. He is one of the funniest guys in wrestling history. And it's so great to see him do this stuff.
It is. It really is. I've always been a huge fan of R-Truth. I don't care what he does. I think he's hilarious. My high spot of the week. I'm trying to pick between two, and I don't know. I got to go with Baron Corbin and Corey Graves. Seeing them and their reaction with no Pat McAfee was just brilliant to me. I love it so much. It's like, when at SummerSlam last year in Vegas, when Nakamura and Boogs made their entrance just so McAfee could get up on the table and dance. I'm videoing that, not paying attention to anything else that's going on. I'm videoing that because it was amazing. And same thing at WrestleMania when McAfee got up on the table when Boogs came out. That reaction is so iconic to me. And then for Corbin and Graves to reenact it, that's great. Brock Lesnar coming in a close second, but I got to go with Corey Graves and Baron Corbin this week. All right, man, that's going to do it. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us. Sorry we went a little bit long. That's what happens when we have good discussions and we get passionate about things. We talk about it. That's why we have a podcast. Yep. So if you're digging what we're doing, give us some feedback at PBW Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Andy is at Andy_PBWP. I am at Chris Belcher 24. The show, again, at PBW Podcast. Make sure you're following along with us. Subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all those places. Make sure you're supporting SportsWire Radio. Tom and that crew over there does a fantastic job of keeping you up to date 24/7 on your sports needs. So tune in at sportnarium.com/player and subscribe to the BodySlam.net YouTube channel. Our fantastic video partners, the exclusive home of the video version, the Bite Bomb Wrestling Podcast. Subscribe, notifications bell, all that stuff. Support their shows over there. They got some great stuff. I know they would appreciate it as well. Andy, it was a loaded show, man. Anything else to add before we sign off?
No, man, not really.
Or should I just not get you started?
Man, theory is my hot topic right now, apparently.
Apparently it is.
If Cody would have never got hurt, we wouldn't have been in this plot. So I'm kind of blaming Cody right now for all this trouble we're in.
It is sort of Cody's fault. And then Randy getting hurt really let the other domino fall. And then here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. All right. Well, make sure you tune in. Again, as a reminder, PBWF is coming to you audio only starting on Monday. So make sure you subscribe wherever you find your podcast. We'll remind you of that on social media as well. So make sure you follow along with us there. We'll be back video version on the BodySlam.net YouTube channel next Thursday. So make sure you're hanging with us. Subscribe, follow along, all that fun stuff. For Mr. Andy York, my name is Chris Belcher. Thank you for hanging out with us on this edition of the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. We will catch you guys down the road.